Hello thinkers, I'm Carlos Alberto. Welcome back to our channel. Today on Stoic Geopolitics, we analyze the current political situation in Colombia following the presidential elections of May 31st, 2026, now heading towards a decisive second round on June 21st. Colombia is one of the most important countries in Latin America, not only because of its size, natural resources, geostrategic location, and population, but also because of its complex and painful political history. To understand the present, a serious historical review is necessary. Since its independence, Colombia has oscillated between periods of relative stability and episodes of extreme violence. The 20th century was marked by La Violencia, 1948 to 1958, a bipartisan conflict that left hundreds of thousands dead. Then came the National Front, 1958 to 1974, a pact between liberals and conservatives to alternate power and avoid further bloodshed. This agreement brought relative peace, but also political exclusion, and paved the way for the emergence of guerrilla groups like the FARC and the ELN in the 1960s. For decades, Colombia lived under a formal but imperfect democracy, constantly threatened by drug trafficking, paramilitary groups, and internal armed conflict. The peace process with the FARC, signed in 2016 during the administration of Juan Manuel Santos, represented a historic attempt to end more than 50 years of war. However, this agreement also generated a deep polarization that still divides Colombian society today. In 2022, Gustavo Petro became president, representing the first left-wing party to win power through elections in modern Colombian history. His government promised many transformations: agrarian reform, a change in the economic model, an energy transition, and total peace. 4 years later, the assessment reveals progress on some social issues, but also strong criticism for governance problems, increased drug trafficking, and consequently insecurity in several regions, economic difficulties, and an intensifying polarization. This first round of elections left a clear and polarized landscape. Abelardo de la Espriella, a right-wing lawyer, obtained approximately 43.7% of the votes. His discourse focused on a hardline approach against insecurity, drug trafficking, and what he called 21st century communism. He represents a desire for correction and order. Iván Cepeda, a left-wing senator and close ally of the current government, reached approximately 40.9%. In his campaign, he defended the continuity of the government's project, emphasizing social justice, structural reforms, and the implementation of the peace accords. This second round will be one of the most polarized in Colombia's recent history. The country is clearly divided between two opposing visions of its future. From the perspective of collective psychology, what is happening in Colombia? When a system exhausts its possibilities and generates massive suffering, society goes through collective defense mechanisms: denial, projection, rationalization, and ultimately, a search for radical solutions. In Colombia, a significant portion of the population feels that the leftist project failed to meet expectations of security and economic stability. Another portion believes that social changes are necessary and fears a return to exclusionary models of the past. This polarization is not only ideological, it is emotional and psychological. It reflects the accumulated weariness of a people who have lived through decades of violence and are now seeking concrete solutions to real problems: insecurity, inequality, corruption, and lack of opportunities. The most important takeaway from Stoic Geopolitics: we live in a democracy when we accept that exercising power when we win and respecting the result when we lose is the fundamental basis of a healthy republic. Here, it is important to clarify a concept. To comply does not mean submission or renunciation of one's own principles. It means respecting the sovereign decision of the people expressed at the ballot box. This leads us to reflect on why a good opposition is so important from our perspective. A good opposition is not one that seeks to sabotage or destabilize the elected government, nor is it one that submits passively. A good opposition, from the perspective of Stoic geopolitics, is one that recognizes the legitimacy of the election results, firmly defends its principles and values, proposes concrete alternatives, perhaps saying, "We would do it better," always prioritizes the common good of the people over partisan interests. Stoic principles tell us that the highest priority should be satisfying the legitimate aspirations of the people and supporting everything that is truly good for them, regardless of who governs. A virtuous opposition does not seek the government's failure to prove it was right. It seeks to make the country function better, even if that means acknowledging the adversary's successes. What will be the results of a good opposition? Primarily, lower levels of polarization. When the opposition acts responsibly, it reduces the fertile ground for fake news, toxic narratives, and culture wars. A mature opposition strengthens democracy instead of weakening it. It contributes to creating an environment of greater stability and institutional trust, essential elements for the real progress of any nation. Colombia has the opportunity today to demonstrate democratic maturity. Whoever wins, the Colombian people must demand responsible governance and, at the same time, a firm but constructive opposition, because a healthy democracy needs both a good government and a good opposition. The pendulum is swinging strongly in Colombia. The real challenge isn't just who wins the second round. The challenge is whether the Colombian people will be able to demand, with maturity and firmness, that whoever is elected governs for the common good, respects institutions, and seeks the necessary balance between social justice and economic stability. Thinkers, the future of Colombia won't be written solely by the winners of this election. It will also be written by the opposition, together with the Colombian people, and their capacity to accept the election results, demand responsible governance, and build, together, a more mature civic culture. I want to read your comments carefully. Which candidate do you think has the best chance in the second round, and why? Are you willing to respect the result even if it's not what you wanted? Dear fellow thinkers, if you enjoyed the video, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so we can reach more people. Thinking well is living better. May virtue and clarity be with you. See you soon.